Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Rick in the new King of the Attic studio, hanging out with Mr. Rock, Johnnie Fredette. Yay, Johnny! How you doing?
Not bad, Rick. Thanks. Yourself?
Hey, I love your shirt.
Well,
Let's let everybody see that.
when you're in Rome, you know, so
Robert Plant and
advertising.
Alison Krauss. Yeah, they're out on tour, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Or they're going out on tour.
They're starting up down in Alabama on the 25th,
Okay.
and then the 26th. The next night, Texas. I'll be there front row in a wheelchair.
Every time
Wheelchair
I see your stuff on social media, you've traveled all over to see him, eh?
Them.
Them.
And then him.
And him.
Yeah. So since '77, I can't beat your radio host guys. I can't take my T-shirt off and fight. So, yeah, and it's been a long time, 45 years. And I met up with Plant last year. We were staying in the same hotel and in the same pub down in Sligo, Ireland. So it was kind of complicated how we got there. Anyway, I flew over after I went opening night Canandaigua. I went down to Queens, Detroit, Chicago, Indianapolis, and then I got on Newark and I got a sailboat over in the Irish Sea, right?
No shit.
Just down from Plants. So I fucked off over there, and I did Hyde Park with the Eagles and a couple other things. So anyway, I put on a live music pub tour, and you know, whether somebody was with me or not, you know, I always made out all right, because you know, I live my life like what else could a poor boy do?
That's right.
But I go hang out and attract an audience and entertain them pretty well too. So
How many shows do you think you've seen of, or how many shows? Like,
never enough, man.
like what do you, 50, 100?
Well,
A lot.
I can't count.
No. And I
Yeah,
did
and
see a
it-
video of you hanging out with the man himself.
Yeah.
And where was that?
Well, that was in Sligo, Ireland, but I want to go back a step.
Okay, go.
So I fly over October 23rd because I knew that they're going to be playing small venues and like bantering and drinking on stage and all that shit, right? And Plant likes to like drink and let loose and swear and on stage and everything, right? In front of a, you know,
Small audience.
bingo audience.
Yeah, yeah.
Opening night in Belfast, Northern Ireland, right? So I was hanging out at the Fuck Ugly pub across the street. Now, we used to have Fuglies since I got back. I was gone 15 years. I moved back. I go to my old places, like Google shows they're closed. So where do you go next? Anyway, over there, they hit the ground running. And opening night was at Ulster Hall, where they first played Stairway to Heaven, right beside the BBC building.
I see.
So I met Rod, the lead roadie, who was trucking all the gear from town to town. And so we went along the road from Belfast to Cork. It was a wild time in Cork. Donovan was on the tour traveling with his manager. And so I was having a fag out back with fucking Ollie Jefferson, the drummer. And, you know, that kind of got me in a bit of trouble later on the tour because we went down to Galway, and then by the time we got to Sligo, Rod got a memo. Maybe you shouldn't be getting too close to the fans. So back to opening night. I mean, I've been bantering with Plant all over the U.S. and you know, he'll say on stage like almost as if on cue, he'll say to Allison and you know, ask her again, and she'd call me a bad actor.
Oh, really?
Okay, you know, and he's always smiling. And the guys in the band, J.D. McPherson, I'm looking forward to seeing them again. They play jazz too, studio musicians,
Yeah.
backing it up. And everywhere, you know, you hear people coming, leaving the audience, and oh man, Robert Plant sold out and all this fucking shit. But you know what? Back to your original question. What it's all about, for me at least, seeing him age. Seeing him perform and shed his skin every time and just keep on going.
He's like what, 7? You said he's
Well, opening night, he's rapping off about something, and I said 74. And he looked at me, he said 74. And I said, yeah, you. He said, oh yeah. Well, you know, I hang out with 36-year-olds on average, all living 15 miles within Birmingham.
Yeah.
Young band, right? Saving Grace. So it's a whole different trip, and all he's doing is singing whatever the fuck he wants up there.
Yeah,
Okay?
doing what he wants.
And you know, I hear him say on stage certain things, like you know, it costs him a fortune to get rid of certain people, and the English, the Welsh, they don't have quite the same, you know, looseness as us Canadians, you might say.
Yeah.
Certainly don't want to be compared to the Americans,
No.
but they're great audiences too.
Yeah.
Okay, but bigger ones. So what they're getting away with over in Ireland, Scotland, that's what those people do every day. They go to the pub from 4 to 8 and they fucking wake up smiling and cheerio mate, whether it's tea or what have you, right?
Yeah.
But for me, it started back in '76 with the Summer Rain's the Same movie. I went in premiere and I saw that and I go, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
So I fly down to New York City and all the other guys are listening to Cars and Black Sabbath, and you know, they're kind of like plants wearing blouses and maybe, you know, they're going, but anyway, you know, I had to be brave to put up with it because it started, we did New York City and then I went to Cleveland Richfield Stadium, was brand new opening, over the hills and far ways. I see these big black limos go running up. There's Robert Plant, Jimmy Page in the back seat, John Bonham, Ed Jones, and of course the drummer,
Yeah.
or John Paul Jones, and blah, 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 okay, in the front. So like, I'm kind of shocked. Well, by the time I get to New York City, I know where they're coming out from the movie.
Yeah.
So if you plan it right, if you're a big fan, okay, you know, it's not easy on the road, but just like he says, what I like, the Robert Plant interview, Stairway to Heaven, one, it's like 3 minutes and 45 seconds. At the last 15 seconds, he talks about being part of the audience and being a performer for the audience and interacting. So I start going out to 20,000, 50,000. Back in '77, Pontiac Stadium, 110,000 people. They had the cameras on the stage right here. First time we ever seen it on a big screen, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said to Plant, here's the way it went down. Me and Rod, we hook up down in Sligo, and an interband memo comes out there. And he says to me, man, I got to be careful hanging out with you. I said, I might lose my job. I can't afford it. Okay? So, you know, I live my life on this principle. Consideration of others before oneself. It's the opposite of selfishness.
That's the way it should be.
Okay? Now, I saw a Plant when my son was 15 at Massey Hall. He was doing an encore. He's on his knees. He's got white shirt, black leather pants, glass of red wine, and he's sipping it, and the chick throws up a couple of lemons. Oh, Robert, squeeze my lemons, you know. He looks up and he says, well, you know, he says, I'm 52 and I just realized I don't have to compete anymore. And I go,
That's
like,
right.
what the fuck does that mean? It took me a while to sink in and figure it out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, nobody can compete with Robert Plant.
No.
He's the king of rock and roll. Don't try to lay no boogie-woogie on him, right?
Yeah, he doesn't need any recognition. Everybody knows who he is. And
Okay, so let's go back to the Sligo now. Thomas Connolly's pub, okay? And I'm an Irish boy. My mother's last name was Conlon. Okay, they came from Mayo County over there. So me and Rod, we meet up, we're hanging out, and that was the day the memo came. And he says, fuck, like, you know, there was no press on this tour and no merch. So it's just the music. That's what Plant's trying to say, right? Meanwhile, back in Cardiff, you know, he's talking about smoking hash and trying to get the people to move in their chairs. Nobody will even clap over there, okay?
yeah.
So it's way different over in Ireland, Scotland, obviously, okay? Everybody's in a great mood. So my buddy Rod, he goes for dinner with this girl from Galway. You said she had getaway sticks and I guess long legs.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And
Getaway sticks. Okay.
so I was sitting there entertaining a couple blokes. That's what they call them over there, guys from Ireland. And along comes the owner. And he says, excuse me, if you guys wouldn't mind moving to the next booth over, we have a party coming in, and gives us all free Guinness, okay? So time goes on, and a little while later, I go out for a smoke out front, and there's Ollie the drummer. Hey Ollie, right, you finished the smoke, and gives me kind of a funny look. Next thing I hear, this guy says, hey Johnny, did you know Robert Plant's in there? And I go, oh fuck. We've been booting back a few, okay. What do you call them? Guinness.
Guinness.
Right? And a few rum and cokes. Rod had gone for dinner. So I go, what the fuck am I gonna do now, right? So we were already staying at the same hotel. They're getting us confused. Chicks were like, he was getting it too, okay? And, you know, it was a little bit fairer than usual, because I go walk in and he points right at me and he goes, it's fucking you, right? And I go, hold on. Don't even think about getting smart or sarcastic or serious with me. Right? I said, you have it lucky. At least you can say you're fucking Robert Plant. Okay? Because by this time, it's Halloween in Ireland.
Oh, fuck.
Friday night and Saturday night. So, meanwhile, then I said to him, you know, the first time it happened to me over in Wales, they have an album called Walking into Clarksdale. Well, I'm walking into McCunleth. It's the ancient capital of Wales, 700 years old. And I'm out front of the laundrette, and this cab comes and, you know, wheels it down, and he says, hey mate, there's another bloke that comes to town, he looks a lot like you, except he's bigger, right? He starts telling me about Robert Plant and Led Zeppelin when they were at Bronyar. His grandmother owned the pub. So I hang out with all the locals for about 4 nights, make friends, and I start hearing Robert Plant stories. Well, fucking lo and behold, I find his house 1.5 miles up a mountain from the solid remains the same. And I didn't know it at the time, okay? I was with Ruth Nicholas from Wales, one traveling partner. She's been around a lot with me. And so anyway, take some pictures, not sure. And there's this next door, further up down the road, this ancient bed and breakfast. Of course, now it's an Airbnb. So I take some pictures. About a month later, I got a card from, it's like a beaver farm. Sharon runs it. And so I start trying to Google it. And I can't get up this and that mountain. There's all sheep, right? So I look at the picture on the wall. It's my oldest possession from the 1976 People magazine. There's a shot of Robert Plant coming up the hill with his son, Karak, and his daughter, Carmen, okay? The little boy who died at 5 years old. And I look and I said, holy fuck, that's a picture exactly the spot I'm standing where it is, my oldest possession.
Oh, shit.
That's how I discovered Robert Plant's house, right? The holiday house. So that's a lot of, and I could go on. But anyway, he laughed, and you know, I told him, you know, I don't even need a picture, and on it went. So anyway, back to the getaway stick girl. So she's comes back from dinner with Rod, and somebody says, well, there's Johnny talking to Robert Plant. So she says to me after, well, I want to talk to him. How do I do that? So I give her my hat, and I said, go over. She said, well, what am I going to say? I said, well, tell him you're my nurse. Or my, you know, photographer.
Yeah.
And so she's kind of sitting on his lap, and she's got a picture of him and her 21 years older. So, and he says to her, let me ask you something. He says, what happened after that picture that night? And she goes, nothing. He goes, oh my goodness, thank you, right? So, anyway, he says to her, he wants to be like me. And she says, well, what do you mean? He says, well, I've been watching him. He loves to talk, like me. And he loves to shoot the shit, right? So, anyway, he said, but he's a good guy, right?
Seems like a cool dude.
That's what he said, right? So that's the start of that short video. I says to him, I says, I love you, man. I said, I'm proud of you. And he goes, well, that's very kind of you to be proud of me. And that showed how he's a kind guy to say that, okay? He's just like right down to earth,
Cool.
okay? So, you know, it's like my 15 fucking minutes of fame.
But
right?
it was cool though.
Yeah, but it was such a nice feeling. And all along the tour, he'd be looking for me on cue. I'd, you know, shout something to him and he'd shout something back, and even had the lights going, looking for me, and waving,
cool, man.
and the whole band. So it was really cool tour, right? And you can get away with it over there, but it's harder in, you know, the amphitheaters, right?
Crazy.
So I'll be sitting right in front of them 2 weeks from tonight
Cool.
in the wheelchair section, right? So thanks, man, for letting me come on your show
Hey,
and tell that little
Johnny,
story.
I want to thank you for
Okay.
coming on. Anybody you want to say something to tonight
Oh,
before we
well,
go?
my friend Ruthie over in Wales, and let's see, Jeremy, the mayor of McIntleth, he's a big David Bowie fan, and I'd just like to remind all the people out there that the 100th anniversary of the St. Catharines Collegiate is coming up May 19th, and I'm putting on the music, the Mighty Duck Blues Band, the Vets and the Legion Branch 24, and putting Susie O'Malley and her band on in the afternoon. It's going to be a great gig. It's going to be the place to
That's
be.
cool.
May
That-
19th. Okay.
I want
Cheers.
I want to say thank you, Johnny, for
Thanks,
coming
man.
on. Anyway, everybody take it easy. We'll see you again down the road. Johnny Fredette. Everybody,
Thanks,
good
Rick.
night.
Thanks. Thanks, guys.